Okay, looks like we got a new park. Disney announced that they're building a new park in Abu Dhabi for in the next few years. It's going to be a full theme park, just like Disneyland Paris, just like Shanghai and Hong Kong. It's going to be very exciting, and we have a lot to dig into, a lot of information to dig into. So let's get started. I'm just as we go into this beginning, let me just go ahead and find the. There's a lot of media here. There's a lot of media here that I want to show you. This is they had a little bit of here. Oh, sorry, you can't see that at the moment. There's a. They had a bit of an announcement ceremony, at least I believe so. This is the little recap video that they put together. A lot of amazing things. They had fireworks and such going on. But this is a very exciting announcement because Disney has not announced a theme park since Shanghai, right? And of course that's fairly recent, right? That's fairly recent. But this is going to be a new park that's going to break ground in a location in the Middle East, where there's not a lot of theme parks. There's not a lot of theme parks in the Middle East that are based on Disney. In fact, there are 0 Disney-based theme parks in the Middle East, unless I'm mistaken. So, look at that castle. Look at that castle. That's amazing. I believe that's made by drones, and I want to actually talk about that. I want to talk about that in a second. But let's go ahead. Let me go ahead and show you what the announcement video would look like. And we'll discuss everything. I'll react a little bit to it as well. But it is honestly phenomenal. This is on YouTube, right? By the way. Okay, it's gonna be a little blocked. I do apologize. I'm gonna give you as much as I possibly can for the views and everything. So
really no secret about our
they
approach.
show, right? They show Walt
forward.
Disney, constructing Disneyland Park in Anaheim. Very exciting, right? And then this is like. This is just saying there's a legacy here. That's what Disney's saying here. There's a legacy of parks being created, right? Starting from Walt Disney, the original, creator, to Bob Iger, the current CEO. And then here are some things that they are showing here about the parks and little previews here. And there's a lot that we could talk about, but I want to particularly emphasize that what we are seeing in terms of like maybe the IPs, the franchises, may be related to what they put in here in the park here. So that's kind of the important thing. We'll go over the imagery. We'll go over the sort of artwork that they've established and put out there, and we'll do a bit of analysis, but. Pay attention to the IP, because I think that this is very basic stages, but I think these are the IPs that Disney is sort of leaning towards for this park. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to use these IPs, but it could mean that these are the ones that Disney's like, okay, we could probably use this. And a lot of these are probably going to be IPs that Disney currently thinks are they're very popular, or they're very useful. They're very useful for this setting. So let's pay attention to that.
A place where we preserve
very clearly, there's going to be. I mean, look, they're talking about innovation, right? They're talking about making things advanced, pushing things towards the future, probably using advanced technology. Obviously, this is going to be on the coast. They said this is going to be on the coast. Right? Epcot, that's a sign of technology. So they're probably going to do a lot of water-based things, a lot of stuff that's related to things by the coast, and then anything that's kind of futuristic. So that should be very exciting, right? There's the water, right? It's going to be right against the ocean. And so Moana makes sense, right? Because Moana is very ocean-based. Obviously, we're gonna have fireworks. There's they're talking maybe the Avatar land. Runaway Railway was the most recent ride at Disneyland. It uses trackless technology, right? Which is very new, relatively speaking.
That's what inspired generations across the region
So
and the world.
Disney is definitely pushing forward for
a powerful fusion of Disney's unmatched legacy in storytelling
for innovation.
and Mira's commitment to bringing world-class
Look at that. Look how much water-based stuff they're showing
Abu Dhabi's
here.
vision for the future is to create a legacy for generations to come.
But there's also that legacy aspect, right? The train, teacups, Mickey and Minnie. Look, they see Elsa and Anna frozen. I really think that's going to play a role.
An oasis of extraordinary Disney entertainment at this crossroads of the world. It will bring
Zootopia?
to life
Wow,
our timeless
okay.
characters
Okay,
and
let's get some
stories
Zootopia in there.
many new ways becoming a source of joy and inspiration for the people of this vast region to enjoy for generations to come.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. That's so exciting, and I can't wait to see it up. But let's talk about things. Let's talk about what we know. Okay, so first, Bob Iger they had an announcement, they had a press release at Disney. They also had an earnings call recently in which he answered questions from various people asking him about the parks. And I want to discuss a little bit of what he said here, the kind of focus on what this is going to mean here. So this is Bob Iger. Bob Iger in his earnings call, I believe it's the second quarter earnings call. He said, I could be wrong, I think it's second quarter. I have that right in here. Yeah, it's second quarter. Q2 for 2025 second quarter earnings call. He says, it will serve as an oasis of extraordinary Disney entertainment for millions and millions of people in this crossroads of the world, connecting travelers from the Middle East and Africa, India, Asia, and Europe, and beyond. So basically, Bob Iger is saying this is a very key location here, and he says, I should start really with an overview of the Middle East. It was very obvious to us there are many people, basically hundreds of millions in the world, that are income qualified meaning that they have the income and the financial ability to travel, but he's continues saying, where a trip to one of our 6 locations that currently exist, like Shanghai, like Disneyland, like Disney World, trip to one of our 6 locations was pretty lengthy in nature and expensive, right? You have all these travel expenses. So he says, and so we felt the best way, obviously, to reach those people is to basically bring our product to them. So this is Yas Island. This is where Disney is planning on building their theme park right here. This already has Ferrari World, right? They got Warner Brothers World on here. This is kind of what it looks like. Look, it already has seems to have a very a theme park based aspect here. And I suspect that right over here, this is the water. Whoops, I know what I clicked in there. This is the water. Okay. That Disney Park is going to be right over here, right against because they're talking about how it's going to be against the coast. So maybe in this section right over here, that's where the Disney Park is going to be. Let me go ahead here. Let me go ahead and let me go ahead and zoom out and show you where this is. Right. So this is Abu Dhabi, and this is in the United Arab Emirates, and then this is the Middle East, right? So right here, in this Gulf here, that's where the Disney location is, and then we could kind of zoom out. There's India, there's Africa, right? The Middle East, bits of Europe there. The closest parks to this location are Disneyland Paris in France, and then we got the Chinese ones, Shanghai and Hong Kong Disney right over here. So those are the 2 closest Disneylands, right? They're all the way. This is very far from everything. You could barely see those lands, and you can't even see America, which is completely on the other side of the world, right? Like they're right there, right over here. That's Disney World. So they're very aware of this location, and they're very excited about this location and what it could mean, because it could reach a lot of different people. So that's very and a very big point that they were trying to make in here. It's gonna be they're not concerned. They're not concerned about this competing with the other parks. That's what they say, right? So they use a cruise ship, a cruise ship that they put in Singapore, and they say that there is a desire for people to engage with the Disney products far away from where their actual IPs exist, right? Because there's no Disney theme park in Singapore, as far as I know, right? So he's saying, like, people want to go to Disneyland. People want to go to Disney World from the Middle East or India, but they don't necessarily want to travel halfway across the world to do so. Okay. And of course, then he threw lots of numbers, right? There's 500 million income qualified people that are able to pay, people that live within 4 hours of this location, and then 120 million people come through Dubai and Abu Dhabi in a year, all right? And that they expect that Abu Dhabi will get about 39 million tourists in 2030. 39 million tourists. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of tourists there. So, and then they talked about other things like, you know, they're appreciative of quality and innovation in arts. They're committed to new technology. They know how to build things. They have an appreciation of legacy. That was brought up a non-insignificant amount of times, both right in that video you saw and also in his call is legacy, right? So what what the Walt Disney Company, I should say, not Walt Disney, is saying like, hey, you know, this is a new park. Right, this is a new theme park that's going to be all innovative. We're going to be pushing forward on what we could do, you know, with the technology and such. But it's still going to be a Disneyland park, right? It's still going to be about Mickey. It's still going to be about Walt Disney's vision. That's what he's trying to say. And also this is important to point out because of the way the financial arrangement of how this is going to work. So you might say, Kevin, this is a very expensive project. Yes, it is. It is. I believe, according to the Thrillist, they say that this park is going to cost about $10 billion. $10 billion. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I don't have $10 billion on me. But the company that's working it, that's fully funding this, is the Miral Group. I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong. The Miral Group, which is a United Arab Emirates-based company, is going to be funding the entire thing. And what Disney is doing is they're overseeing the design. They're licensing the intellectual property, right? They're providing the expertise of how to run the operations, and so that's basically is they're not paying for building this park. They're not paying for building the park. The Miral Group is paying for the park. They're going to own the park, but Disney is the one that is licensing things to them. So there isn't going to be a big, huge cost on Disney to create this park. This is very similar, by the way, to how they run things in Tokyo Disney. Tokyo Disney is owned by a separate company, not the Disney company, but they license the IP. They license the IP from Disney, right? So that's how it works, right? So even though it's a Disneyland theme park, it's not owned by Disney, and Disney's not going to have any ownership. Disney doesn't always have ownership. I believe that for Tokyo and Shanghai Disney, Disney does not own the entirety of parks. They split the ownership with local companies. So it could be one company, it could be multiple companies. I don't know for sure, but it's not full ownership. In fact, I don't think they have majority ownership of those theme parks. But the license but they do have the licensing rights, right? And that's what Disney's doing here for this park here on Yas Island. So it's going to be very interesting, very exciting here on what we're going to do with these parks there. They're going to definitely try to they're definitely committed to quality, and they're basically trying to push things forward here. I'm trying to see if what other quotes here. This also is, I want to go ahead and say that somebody did ask, hey, by the way, are you planning on any other locations around the world for another theme park? And I think Bob Iger says, like, well, I appreciate you already asking, even though we just announced this is the 7th park. But he says, and while I'm not going to rule out the possibility of another location, there's nothing that's really being planned near term to actually build another park in what would be an 8th location. So he's saying, like, look, we're just, there's no plans for an 8th location, right? Now that doesn't mean Disney isn't looking, but it does mean that there's no plans at the moment, right? So and he also says that while people are concerned that maybe this park is going to take away from investments in like the other parks like Disneyland or Disney World, he says that he's reminding everyone, hey, by the way, we are spending $30 billion to expand Florida and California, right, the locations of Disney World and Disneyland respectively, because which he says, which obviously is a vote of confidence in those locations. So he says, don't worry, we're not replacing Disneyland. We're not replacing Disneyland. So, okay. So now we got some of the technicals out of the way. Let's talk about speculation. Let's see what's going to be about this. Okay, first off, we think it's going to cost $10 billion. Disney's not going to pay for it. Okay, they will pay for a little bit. Obviously, they're going to be paying their employees that are working with the Miral Group. for both, how to operate the parks. They're going to have their Imagineers, of course, working on ride designs, IPs, how to integrate everything. So this isn't completely free on the Disney side of things, but it's not going to be, $10 billion kind of cost there, right? Okay, he's going to say, now, when is this going to open, right? I want to say, some of you might say, Kevin, I want to go right now. Like, yeah, well, you got to let it be built first. Here's what Bob Iger said. According to Daps Magic, Bob Iger says, we're not pinning down a date yet. It typically takes us between 18 months and 2 years to design and fully develop, and approximately 5 years to build, but we're not making any commitments right now. So for reference, that's like 2 years to design, and then 5 years to build. But these are all approximations. For a good example might be Shanghai Disney, which is the most recent Disney park built. It was 5.5 years between the announcement of Shanghai Disney and its opening, according to Daps Magic. So it got announced right now, right? It is currently May 2025. What is 5.5 years from now? Well, we could easily add 5 to 2025, so that's 2030, and then 5 months would be October 2030. So if it has the same timeline as Shanghai Disney, it will open in October of 2030. Now, I'm not going to bet on that date, and I don't think anyone should bet on that date, because there's a lot of things that could go right and a lot of things that could go wrong in the development process, and things could be a lot faster or shorter depending on how things develop. Right, and so I don't think anyone should put it. Don't start planning your vacation to Abu Dhabi for 2030. However, 2030 is a nice date, right? A nice round number to open a park, right? Because it's right on the decade. But it'll open when it opens. It'll open when they believe that they're ready. So that's very exciting. I mentioned earlier that the location of the park is important, and this is what Josh D'Amaro, the chairman of Disney Experiences, he's in charge of the parks, said. He says, the location of our park is incredibly unique, anchored by a beautiful waterfront, which will allow us to tell our stories in a completely new way. Now, I want you to go ahead and just take a look at this beautiful design here that we have for the park. Right, this is very vague, right? I think it's intentionally designed to not look very clear, so that you can't sort of see what sort of details exist on there, and I think that's very important. It's very important for Disney. It was very intentional for Disney to do that, because they want to say, hey, we don't have anything set in stone yet. Don't start being like, oh, that looks like Haunted Mansion. Of course there's gonna be Haunted Mansion in there. We can speculate though. And I think the biggest speculation that we can have here is this art, right? So this is their castle, right? You can clearly see like they got the whole Tinkerbell flying over the castle look that is very common with Disney's IPs. So this is what they're envisioning their castle to be. And I think this is kind of similar to structures that you might see in Abu Dhabi. I don't know for sure, but I want you to think, what does this look like to you? What does this look like to you? And I think it looks like this. I think it looks like this. This is Elsa's palace. Elsa's palace from Frozen, right? I just typed in Elsa's palace, and I think this is the image come out. Now, admittedly, Elsa's palace in Frozen looks to be very more straight lines, vertical, right? Kind of crystally kind of look to it, right? And this is definitely more of a sort of a fluid, curved kind of design. But honestly, it looks very, very close, right? Very close, right? In terms of that. And the castles at each of the Disneylands are based on princesses, right? Right? So, the Sleeping Beauty's castle. So why not Elsa's castle? Why not Elsa's castle, right? And of course, Frozen is an incredibly popular franchise, right? They're making Frozen 3, right? They people love Elsa and Anna. And then we even saw in this, let's see, where did we see it? In this video, there's Elsa and Anna right here, right? Elsa and Anna right here. So they're already thinking ahead and saying, hey, maybe we want to have some sort of, Frozen-based franchise in this park here. And I think that's going to be primarily represented by this castle. By this castle here. So I think we could make that speculation. But what about some of these other details here? What about some of these other details? That's a good question. Obviously, it's going to be by the water here, so there is sort of like this little boat here. I don't think that's anything important. They could definitely put in a sort of Tiana's or Bayou Adventure or a Splash Mountain equivalent into the parks, because it is by the ocean, so it would make sense to have water rides. They might have they plan on making an Avatar Land for California Adventure here in Anaheim, and obviously a water-based land might definitely fit in a place by the coast. We saw that Moana was in the video. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know about some of these other elements here. There's some sort of track here. I don't think that's Autopia. Maybe it's a Radiation Springs Racers or a test track kind of thing here. I think they definitely have a sort of Matterhorn looking mountain here. So that would be cool. Especially since they have talked about, like, that Europe, right? They want to get people from Europe coming, and the Matterhorn is based in Switzerland, so that would be a fun little aspect. And then of course but notice there's a lot of water-based structures here. There's a water land or attraction there. There's a water attraction here. There's maybe some sort of water thing right here. The castle is literally on the edge of water, and then there's a scattering of other things that we can't quite make the details of. That looks like a futuristic design, right? So which they were talking about. So that's kind of an interesting, like, kind of a lot of speculation. I don't think this is anything significant. What I want to point out though is that because they emphasize water, Josh D'Amaro emphasized water, because this artwork emphasizes water, because they've shown a lot of water-based franchises that that in the video, that maybe they're going to be a little more focused on that in this upcoming theme park. So yeah, I'm thinking Avatar, Way of the Water, Moana. This is speculation. This is all speculation, but maybe Aladdin, not necessarily water-based, but it is a Middle East franchise, intellectual property, and a classic one at that, that they could use, right? So who knows? There's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of possibilities here, and I think that's very I think it's very exciting. So who knows? One thing I should note here, and this is going to affect the design, is the climate. There it is. Okay, so Abu Dhabi gets hot. Abu Dhabi gets hot in the summer, right? Here, this is from weatherspark.com. It says the hot season lasts for 4.2 months, so 4 months from May to September, with an average daily high temperature above 98 degrees Fahrenheit. Let me say it again. An average daily high temperature above 98 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a really hot. Really hot. I don't know what that is in Celsius. I really don't know. Oh boy. Let's see here. Yeah, we don't need this anymore. This is fun. 98 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius. Let's see what that is. 37 degrees Celsius. 37 degrees Celsius. Okay, so that's fun. That's fun. That's a lot of heat. So it's hot. It's extremely hot. For this period, right? And even and I know from Disney experiences, when temperatures get above 100 degrees, Disney starts getting concerned, and they want to make sure that cast members and guests are able to be safe. I think that's one of the key things that Disney focuses on is ensuring safety. So that's a big challenge. During the cold season, it doesn't look like it's too bad. The average daily high temperature is like below 79 degrees. Average low is 61 degrees. So it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad at these parks during the cold season. But during the hot season, it's going to be a scorcher. So this is just speculation, but I suspect that maybe Disney's going to do something in this park to ensure that guests are comfortable, or at the very least are able to survive these high temperatures. I don't know for sure, but then you might see a lot of misters, right? There's a lot of misters that can be used to spray water to keep temperatures low. They use that in California Adventure. and it works out well. Any indoor rides or indoor attractions are usually pretty good, right? Because you can temperature control an indoor attraction. So there might be a large number of indoor attractions that they use in the parks, or they might make things more indoors. A good example might be an outdoor attraction that is actually indoors. It's hard. I actually have to think about some of these examples, but Small World in Disneyland. Small World is loads outside. It's an outside line. It's an outdoor loading area, and then you go inside for the show. I was gonna say show, but it's not quite a show. It's a ride, an attraction. In Disney World, it's internal, right? You load inside a building. And then the whole thing is inside a building. So perhaps some of the rides or attractions are going to be a lot more enclosed than you might see at other parks, right? Where the line and the ride is inside. Because even if people are waiting in a line inside where it's temperature controlled, that's much better than waiting outside in a line in 100-degree weather. That's not temperature controlled, right? The more guests get out of the heat during the hot season, the better it will be for their experience throughout the day, right? Because it's a whole thing, right? Rides are fun, but if you don't want to be waiting in a line 100 degrees for like 40 minutes. Nobody wants that. So maybe a lot more indoor things, a lot of ways that they could try to use to cool down. This is actually very and guys, I got to point out that Abu Dhabi is on the coast here. Like it is near the water. So the fact that it already gets to 100 degrees above, 97 degrees, above 98 degrees, despite being by the water being probably much cooler than 98 degrees. If it is 98 degrees, I'd be very concerned. Already indicates that it's just hot. It's just hot. I mean, if they built this theme park further inland, which they probably wouldn't have even considered, it'd be much worse. So, but I think they're gonna use the fact that they have access to the waterfront to maybe emphasize more of the water, maybe try to cool the guests off a bit more. A lot of water rides, right, will be very popular in the summer, right? You get some sort of Splash Mountains, Sartiana's by Adventure in there, that people would love that. Maybe a water ride based on Avatar, at an Avatar Land, maybe another water ride, similar to how we have Grizzly Rapids in California Adventure. Just anything that will get people wet and cool down, it would be very popular in the summer. And then it sounds like the cool months aren't too bad, right? So there'd still be relatively, you could still relatively do it. You just probably wouldn't do it at night, kind of thing here. But in Abu Dhabi, you might just at nighttime during the hot months, you'll just ride it whenever. It won't be a bad thing. So maybe, but we're definitely not going to see until the 2030s. That's going to be really kind of interesting. And we'll have to take a look. We'll have to take a look on what Disney is planning on doing. But it's going to be a Disney park. It's gonna look like a Disney park. It's gonna have a lot of interesting aspects to it. Also, normally Disney parks are lined north to south, right? South being where the gate is, and north being where the castle is. Given how this map looks, it's possible that if they build a Disney theme park right here, they could align it north-south, right, where the castle is on the northern part here, and the gates to the south. I don't know if they want to do it that way, but Disney has a tendency to align north-south. Now there are some concerns. Here. I don't want to diminish this, right? This is according to the Thrillist, right? And they basically say how the United Arab Emirates is a country that's long been on the human rights watch list. That's what the Thrillist says, right? So there's human rights concerns about the certain rights of women. And then, of course, that homosexuality is illegal in the United Arab Emirates. Now, according to Wikipedia here, which, I know my teacher is probably, my old high school teacher probably said, Kevin, you can't use Wikipedia as a source. I'm like, I'm sorry. I do apologize. I'm using Wikipedia as a source. They say that there's been no known arrests or prosecutions for same-sex sexual activity in the UAE since 2015. As of 2022, so that's interesting. So it's curious and but that's a concern. That's a concern that people are going to have here. There's a concern that what kind of restrictions and what kind of rights visitors are going to have when visiting this theme park, because it is in the United Arab Emirates. So I don't know what the answer is on how they're going to how Disney, how the company is going to the Morale Group company is going to address this. I don't know. That's all speculation, but it is something to sort of know, right? It's sort of to be aware of, moving forward. And I'm sure Disney is extremely aware about this. I'm sure that Bob Iger and the Morale Group people and the government, and there's probably people in the government that also were involved in the discussions, have all had conversations, tons of conversations about this. So I don't think Disney's walking into this blind. I do think that they've done a lot of research, and they've done their homework, and they have a plan moving forward. And Disney is ultimately a company, so Disney could have said like, hey, we think that this is a good, despite the challenges, we think this is a good opportunity for us, and we'll figure things out. So, but that's a concern. That's a concern to bring up. I don't know if there's anything else that I want to necessarily discuss with you regarding this park, this project, but definitely exciting. I have a question for all of you. Would you go to Disney Abu Dhabi, especially when it opens in 5, 6, 7, 8 years? It's gonna basically use new technology, and that will be very interesting because it's going to be innovative. Actually, this is one thing that I should say. This is actually good news for the other theme parks, right? Disneyland, Disney World, Disneyland Paris. This is good news. The Morale Group is paying. The Morale Group is paying for everything, right? They're paying for the construction, right? They're footing the bill. If I were the Disney company, and I'm sure the Disney company thought about this, I'd be like, so they're going to be taking on all this construction costs for us. This is a great opportunity for us to push forward some of our innovative, some of our unique and new ideas for attractions, for rides, for shows, and have the Morale Group be the one to pay for the construction, to foot the bill, right? It's not a blank check. It's not a blank check. They're obviously going to be working hand in hand and discussing, hey, what do we want and what we don't want, but Disney could say, hey, we have a new idea for an attraction using new technology. We want to, we are willing for you to be the first, be on the ground floor of this new ride, this new attraction, and because you're willing to pay for it. But you'll have first access to it, right? You'll have access to it before all the other parks, right? But just know that this is new. It's tested, but we'll have to see like how the guests like it, how it performs in a high activity environment, and it sounds like they'll say like, sure, the Morale Group is sure, right? They're talking about innovation, they're talking about pushing things forward. That was in the announcements, so we could see a lot of high tech or innovative rides in this park that they're going to develop that, hey, eventually could spread over to Disney World, to Disneyland, to all the other parks, because they'll be tested in here, and Disneyland says like, this was a great idea. Let's do more. Let's put this in Disneyland. Let's put this in Disney World, right? Let's bring this right over, because if it works here in Abu Dhabi, it could work in Paris. It could work in Florida. So that's a interesting thing here, that we have a potentially benefit that we have by extension, because they could have a lot of different attractions that they run here that are new, and then Disney's saying that works. Let's bring it over. So that'll be fun. I also think that they're going to have a big show, a big kind of drone show here. One, they could run it over the water. right? They can run it over the water, so you're not gonna have drones falling on people's heads. I think that's usually a pretty good thing. Although we'll see where they run it. I think Disneyland Paris has a drone show, so they'll probably have a drone show here. They did have in the announcement video, which I did close, so I can't show it to you. They did have a drone show in the announcement video, so I think they're gonna have a drone show for this park. I could be wrong, but I think that's pretty exciting. I wish we had drone shows here in Anaheim in California, but we're literally in the middle of a city. Like we don't have the space for a drone show. You put a drone show up and something goes wrong, the drone is gonna fall on someone. So not the easiest thing to do. I mean, they already close. I don't know if this was the case in other parks, but they already closed Toontown and parts of Fantasyland for fireworks shows here in California, right? Because of the safety, right? So they're already closing lands off for fireworks. Just imagine if they had like flying robots. They would definitely close off a lot of things there. So, but I think that they might have a drone show for this park here. We'll see. In 7 years, let's come back. We'll say, Kevin, you were right about nothing. Maybe I'm right about nothing. Yeah, but would you be interested? Would you be going to the parks on opening day? I have a friend, a fellow streamer, Aaron J, who said, yep, he's going to be here. He's going to be here on day one opening. He's going to stream the parks. There'll probably be a lot of streamers actually streaming the parks on day one. So I don't know if I'm going to be. It depends on when it opens. If it opens in like August, I think I'll just be dying. It's hot in Abu Dhabi in August, right? We talked about this. 104 degrees Fahrenheit high. I melt in California temperatures. I can't imagine being in the Middle East. I'd just be gone. 104. That's the average, which means it gets hotter than that. Oh boy. But very exciting announcement here for Abu Dhabi. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If your thoughts are. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, and I can't wait to see what sort of rides they're going to develop, and maybe what sort of rides we get back here at Disneyland. That probably won't be something that we see for another 10 years at least. But hey, you know what? 10 years can be both a short and a long time. Well, even if I have to wait 10 years. I'll wait. Take care, guys. This is very exciting, and I will see you later. Yeah. And Mr. Iger, Bob, if you are playing an eighth theme park, yeah, we'd love to hear about it. It's very exciting. Take care. Good night, guys. Bye bye.